So the Eve Spectrum, I've been using this monitor for the past few weeks now, and it's been a great monitor, fantastic, but there is one catch which I'll get right into straight away. So I have a timeline of events here just because I wanted to make sure I get everything right. So I ordered the monitor on July 30th, and when I ordered, there was an 18 to 35 day expected delivery date. Cool, I was happy to support a company that was selling something outside of Amazon, even if it means longer shipping times. I'm happy to do that. But on the 13th of August, I got an email saying that my order is on the way, but there was no tracking number. So then on the 30th of August, I got an email saying my order has been updated, and it simply said that the tracking number was to be expected from the 1st to the 5th of November. Now, obviously, I was disappointed because it said when I placed my order that I was going to receive it within 18 to 35 days. But then I ended up actually finally receiving the monitor on the 25th of November, so nearly 4 months later. To be fair, I wouldn't have even minded if the shipping was 2 to 4 months. Honestly, not an issue, as long as it's made clear from the beginning, especially because I have experience in the shipping industry, shipping all sorts of products and all sorts of things all around the world. I know that sometimes things can sort of go out of hand. It's not in your control. But with something like this, it was clear that Eve didn't actually have it in stock. They were just ordering stock and units as they basically got the orders in from customers and then hoping that they would catch up. You know, it just wasn't all that clear, and it's quite disappointing because waiting 4 months for an item, obviously for a lot of people, is going to be an issue. It's going to be something that's going to annoy them. And Eve aren't really known for great customer service. There are a lot of stories online that I've seen on Reddit and other places where people have ordered something, it's taken ages to get it, they've asked for a refund, and Eve have taken their time processing the refund. So yeah, the customer service isn't the greatest in the world, and I feel like that's definitely a big catch when it comes to buying this monitor. The unboxing experience was very nice though, very professional, and what I'd actually expect from much larger companies. I'd actually argue that the unboxing experience is better than what you get with someone like LG. The packaging is protective and has nice graphics all over it. I commend their designers, they seem to know what they're doing. But there was no HDMI, DisplayPort or USB-C cables in the box, something I would have expected for a monitor of this price range. I've had monitors which are much cheaper, come with all of those cables. So yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind. You're going to have to use your own cables. You can buy the monitor on its own without the stand to save some money, but I went with the stand anyway just to see what it's like. And the stand feels like an absolute tank, and it also looks fantastic. I love how it doesn't have some silly gamery design, it's just simple and minimal. It provides good height and tilt adjustment, as well as the ability to rotate the display if you want it portrait. It doesn't rotate at the base though. The only issue I have with the stand is that there is no proper cable management. There is a hole for the cables to go through, but there's no way to keep the cables attached to the back of the actual monitor stand itself. So they end up dangling down, ruining the clean look a little bit. But that's just me being picky. Now onto the monitor itself, which at first touch feels amazing. The back has a soft touch rubber-like texture, but it doesn't feel cheap. It also looks darn amazing. The bezels are super thin, and there is no branding on the front, keeping it super minimal looking. There is only a small LED indicator, which can actually be turned off completely if it's too distracting. The design is so good that I'd actually say it looks like something Apple would design. Clean and minimal and not so garish. I'm a pretty sweaty gamer myself anyway, but I just hate the gamer aesthetic. I hate all the RGB, I hate all this sort of fancy, edgy sort of designs. I really don't like any of that. So I'm really glad Eve have made a monitor that can really suit anyone. I personally went with the 4K 144Hz version. They also offer a 1440p 144Hz and a 1440p 240Hz for lower prices. But I wanted the full fat 4K 144Hz so that I can make the most out of my PS5, my PC and my MacBook Pro. The monitor is 27 inches, which I think is actually the perfect size for me, as I've used 32-inch monitors for gaming and I've just found them a bit too big, especially when playing first-person shooters like Apex. Obviously 32 inches is great for productivity. If you want that extra screen estate and you're not playing games that are first-person shooters, then yeah, probably 32 inches will be better for you. But for me personally, I love the 27-inch form factor. It is an IPS panel, so colors and contrast look fantastic. It supports 98% of the DCI-P3 range and 100% of the sRGB. It's also a 10-bit panel, so if you're someone who does photo editing or video editing, this display will be a good choice. I've already spent some time photo editing, video editing on it, and yeah, when I actually compare it to my MacBook Pro, my MacBook display, it matches up incredibly well. I can't actually tell a difference. Probably the best thing about this monitor though is the sheer number of ports. This is one of the best port equipped monitors I've ever seen. On the bottom you have a DisplayPort 1.4 and two HDMI 2.1 ports, which means full support for PS5 and Xbox Series X. There's also a USB-C port which can provide up to 100 watts of power. So that means if you have a MacBook, you can have a one cable setup as it will run the display as well as charge your MacBook. Finally, there is a USB Type-B upstream for connecting to your PC because the monitor has a built-in USB hub. On the left side, you'll find that built-in hub and it has an extra USB-C port, two USB Type-A ports and a 3.5mm headphone jack. The great thing is, this hub actually works via the USB-C port for the MacBook as well. Another great feature about the built-in hub is that it can also provide power. 15 watts to the USB-C port and 10 watts to the Type-A ports. So I usually just use it to charge my Sony Pulse headset, but you can also use it to charge your phone or whatever else you want to charge. On the back of the monitor, near the bottom of the display, you'll find the joystick for navigating the menus and the on-off button. Pressing the joystick brings up the on-screen display, and in here there are an absolute ton of options. You have input and output options. You can change things like the input source, HDMI modes, and select the USB hub source. Gaming options for things such as crosshair and frame rate counter. Presets let you save different user presets so you can have different picture settings and save them under different user presets. Picture gives you an array of picture adjustment options. Performance lets you adjust things like response times and backlight strobing. OSD lets you adjust the on-screen display settings themselves. Indicator light, so this is something I've not seen before and it can be used to adjust the LED indicator at the bottom of the display. You can change the indicator to have different behaviors, but what I found most impressive is that you get RGB color options, so you can pretty much make the indicator any color you want. That is pretty sick. Finally, the information screen just gives you other info such as model number, serial number, and firmware version. When connecting my MacBook up, it had no issues recognizing the display via USB-C, and I can get the full 4K resolution at 60Hz. I did try and see if I could get 4K 144Hz on the monitor with the MacBook, but I couldn't really see how. I went through various display settings and can see the option for variable refresh rate and for 144Hz. But picking either of those would make the display simply just go blank. So the option is definitely there in macOS. The MacBook can support an external 4K display at 144Hz, and we know that Eve Spectrum can also support it. But I think there's some sort of communication error, something going on there where it just doesn't seem to work. I don't know why, but really not a big deal. 144Hz, yeah, I feel like I don't really see how you're going to use that on a MacBook. Even the 120Hz that I have on my MacBook display, yeah, I don't really use it. I don't really see any need for it. So yeah, I don't think it's a big loss, but it's something to keep in mind because you're not going to get 144Hz with your MacBook on this display. I like to scale the resolution in the display settings. I found 2560 by 1440 is a good mix of sharpness and screen estate. My biggest issue though with other monitors is the color accuracy compared to the MacBook display, but the Eve Spectrum seems to do an incredible job. I'm designing, photo editing and video editing every day, and I can't actually tell any difference with my eyes when it comes to color. I don't have a colorimeter to accurately measure it, but I think most people will be happy with the output of the panel. It of course also charges the MacBook as expected, and you can use the MacBook in clamshell mode, so if you like to tuck your MacBook away behind the monitor or under the desk, that can be done. There is one little annoying issue though, and that is when you have the MacBook connected up to the display and you end up switching outputs. Maybe you've had enough of work and you want to start playing your PS5. You switch to your PS5, you switch to HDMI. The MacBook, or the display I guess, is telling the MacBook that it's still connected. So technically, your MacBook is connected and it thinks it's got that external display. So all of your stuff is on that display, but you're actually using HDMI. So you're seeing your PS5 UI. So yeah, just a bit annoying because it means you can't really use your MacBook until you disconnect it. Frustrating, but I guess, I don't know. I feel like for everyone it's going to be a bit different. Some people obviously aren't going to be using their MacBook whilst they're playing games, so the display doesn't matter, so they can disconnect it. But obviously it's just another little faff having to disconnect it to use the MacBook again. But yeah, something to keep in mind. So I mainly bought this monitor for 4K 144Hz gaming on my PC and for getting the most out of my PS5. Getting the output from my PC for 4K at 144Hz was no problem, and it works right away. The only issue is I'm still yet to find an RTX 3080. It's just impossible to get my hands on one. So I'm still using the 2080 Super, and for games like Apex, you know, to get 144Hz, I have to scale back the resolution to 1440p. Not an issue, I don't mind, it works completely fine, but I'm looking forward to getting my hands on an RTX 3080 so I can make the most of playing games at 4K 144Hz. I mean, some games like Forza Horizon 5, I can play them at 4K and get around 60 to 70 frames per second, which is completely fine because a game like that, I don't need that proper high refresh rate. I'd much rather have that 4K resolution, and it looks absolutely fantastic on the EVE Spectrum. When it comes to my PS5, as expected, it looks awesome and works great with a monitor. I had no issues running games and getting 120Hz. The UI especially looks super sharp at 4K, and the colors and contrast just look so damn good. I think that is something particularly striking about the EVE Spectrum. Other monitors seem to always have a somewhat washed out look, but the EVE Spectrum has just the right amount of contrast. So this is a seriously great monitor, and probably one of the best monitors right now when you take into account the overall features, functionality and design. It's pretty rare to find 4K monitors that can provide a one cable USB setup for Macs, yet this goes further and has a 144Hz panel. It also has two HDMI 2.1 ports, so it supports PS5 and the Xbox Series X. That IPS panel provides fantastic colors and contrast, so it's great for content creators as well. EVE have clearly listened to what people want and have made a monitor that targets the most requested features. It is a shame that it was let down by poor dispatch times, but I love it and it's going to be my primary gaming monitor going forward. When I bought the monitor back in July, it was actually $699. Now they've upped the price by $100 to $799. And that's without the stand, which also costs an additional $99. It is definitely on the premium end of the Spectrum. Get it? Spectrum? Yeah, I don't know why I do this, but anyway, I'd say it's worth it for that high price tag. Considering the design, the features, the functionality, everything that you get, I think it's worth the money, and I would highly recommend it if you have the cash. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Make sure to check out one of my other videos. I'll leave it linked here, whatever. And also make sure to subscribe to my newsletter. I share sort of different types of content on my newsletter. I leave a link to it down in the description. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.